We can now begin our meeting. We have enough quorum. Thank you all for joining the panel on manpower. We are now going to move on to election of chairman for the panel on manpower for this term. The Secretariat has already sent out notice that only one valid nomination was received by the deadline for nomination for the election of chairman. The member nominated is Lok Chong Hang, and member making the nomination is Chang Kwok Kun, and member seconding nomination is Lam Chun Sing. As Mr. Lok Chok Hong is not a chairman or deputy chairman of a government advisory body in respect of matters in which a panel considers to be directly related to the terms of reference of the panel and is also not a chairman of more than one panel at the same time, I now announce that Mr. Lok Chong Hong is elected as chairman for the panel on manpower. Mr. Lok, please. Thank you, members, for supporting me. I hope that we'll be able to work closely together in this panel on manpower to support both employers and employees. We now move on to the election of deputy chairman. So we can now begin the election of deputy chairman for the panel on manpower. The Secretariat has sent out notice that only one valid nomination was received by the deadline for nomination for the election of deputy chairman. The member nominated is Mr. Lam Chun Sing. And Mr. Dennis Leung made the nomination, seconded by Mr. Zhou Siu Chong. As Mr. Lam Chun Sing is not a chairman or deputy chairman of a government advisory body and also not a chairman of another panel. In accordance with the House rules, I announce that Mr. Lam Chun Sing elected as the deputy chairman for the panel on manpower. We now move on to agenda item 2, the meeting dates of the year 2022 session. Members, please note that in accordance with Rule 14(1) of the Rules of Procedure, we have already set out the regular meeting dates for the 2022 session. The Secretariat has suggested the panel to amend the date on February 6th. Members, please take note of the dates: February 15th, March 15th, April 19th, May 17th, and June 21st. We will hold our regular meetings of the panel on manpower in accordance with past we are also holding our meetings on the Tuesday of every third week. We are not going to have a regular meeting at this time in July. We'll only hold one when there is such a need. Are there any objections from members? If not, then it is agreed that we hold these regular meetings on the above-mentioned dates. Discussion item for the next meeting. In the next meeting, we are going to hold it on February 15th at 4:30 in the afternoon. On February 16th, 17th, and 18th, the Council will be debating on the policy address. The Secretariat has already arranged for the Secretary for Labour and Welfare of Hong Kong to give us a policy briefing on February 15th at 4:30 in the afternoon. The administration has also suggested discussing on raising the penalty for the Occupational Safety and Health Ordinance. So do members agree with this briefing and the item for discussion? There's going to be a special meeting in February. Other than the regular meeting, the administration has suggested holding a special meeting on the 4th day of the lunar year, which is February 4th. A special meeting will be held from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. to discuss the proposals for the arrangements for scrapping the MPF offsetting mechanism. Do members agree in holding a special meeting on February 4th? So we will hold the meeting on February 4th. Mr. Kwok Wai-keung. Did you raise your hand? Yes. Thank you. So we're going to discuss the scrapping of the MPF's offsetting mechanism on February 4th. Of course, we must do this as soon as possible. We agree in the holding of this special meeting to implement this as soon as possible. However, Chairman, in recent days, we are very concerned with people who are under compulsory quarantine or those who have been sent to Penny's Bay for quarantine. Some people are sent to quarantine and they may not be fully supported by their employers. Can we also discuss this item on February 4th? Employees are very concerned with their jobs and on compensation. We, of course, hope to fight for compensation for them while they cannot go to work. And we have heard from the news that some employees needed to be subject to quarantine. They were dismissed. Would that actually be in violation of our ordinances? Can you ask the Secretary whether we could also discuss this item on February 4th? Well, this is a very good suggestion. Mr. Stephen Ho, I agree with Mr. Kwok Wai-keung's suggestion. Those living in Kwai Chung Estate or those employees who were dismissed because of the quarantine arrangement are of huge concern right now. I think they should receive compensation. I don't think we have enough time to ask this at the council meeting. So I hope that you would arrange for us to discuss this item. I think this is even more important than the MPF mechanism. Are we going to talk about other outstanding items for discussion? Yes. Both of you are suggesting that at the special meeting on February 4th, we should not only talk about the arrangements for the MPF offsetting mechanism, instead to talk about compensation for quarantined people and on whether the Department of Health can issue a medical certificate for quarantined employees, whether they can seek compensation. We want to know about their rights. So I would also include this under the items for discussion on February 4th, and I would ask the Secretary to respond to those issues. Well, Chairman, I hope you'll be able to send a letter on behalf of the panel on Manpower to the Secretary so that the Secretary can respond in writing as soon as possible. Mr. Dennis Leung. There are many people subject to home quarantine in Kwai Chung Estate. In July of 2020, the EOC also issued a letter on clarifications for both employers and employees. And I think this paper was also circulated last year to explain this issue. I hope that other than the Department of Health and also the Secretary for Labor and Welfare, you would also invite Equal Opportunities Commission to come on and explain to us the rights of employees. We see those being sent to quarantine in Penny's Bay will be issued with a medical certificate from the Department of Health after they completed their quarantine. And I know many people wanted to seek compensation for the quarantine period. However, in the housing estate in Kwai Chung right now, the quarantine is under the housing department. I hope that we can also invite the housing authority to come up and tell us how they can handle this situation. I think it is already related to the EOC, but for the housing issue, I will discuss with the relevant departments first. We do not want to have too abstract a discussion. So we can agree that on February 4th, we'll talk about the MPF issue and also talk about the rights for the employees. I would suggest that we extend the meeting from 1.5 hours to 2 hours to ensure there be ample time for discussion. Outstanding items for discussion in the other regular meetings. I, together with the Deputy Chairman, will discuss with the Secretary for Welfare and Labor on items for discussion. And after we set out a working plan, the Secretariat will notify members on items for discussion and arrangements. I welcome members to submit items for discussion in writing. We will try our best to accommodate your requests. Any questions? Ms. Lillian Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I was wondering if we can follow up on some issues in our regular meetings. In the past, there have been many accidents at the workplace. We need to work on training and education on employees because I don't think that it is adequate right now. Do we have enough training provided to employees and workers? I was wondering if we can follow up on that. On the qualification framework, we see that the highest level is level 3 at this moment. How can we further enhance it to another level so that it would be another step up the ladder to achieve level 4 on 5 so that our young people would have more choices in their career? And after we have a comprehensive review on the qualification framework, then I would like to focus on on-site training. It should be linked with the qualification framework. Upcoming, there will be many innovative projects. At this moment, courses under the qualification framework, do we see enough training? We really need to review that because we must work together with the times to ensure there will be ample training. I also have a fourth point. Can you actually submit this in writing? I'll just give you 10 odd seconds. Would you be able to complete it in 10 seconds? The fourth point is on insufficient mobile working population. We do not have enough resources for that. I hope that we can also review that to see whether we could, to our discretion, import labor from elsewhere. Well, I forgot to say that we should not be giving suggestions and proposals right now. You should submit this in writing. If you really want to speak about that, you just give us the brief topic. Well, we don't have much time. we have to leave time for the next meeting. Mr. Yu Pak-lung. Thank you, Chairman. I'm also very concerned with the ERB and the training courses. I see that many of the courses actually are not on par with current times. We must try to refresh and update the courses to ensure that it can meet the current needs. We see that in many industries, it's actually based on on-site training. We hope to identify work that in which we can also import labor. Mr. Chao Siu-chung. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to discuss one item in our upcoming meetings. I'd like to talk about PWIF. I hope that we can also place importance on this item as well. Mr. Stephen Ho. Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, Chairman. I just want to follow up on one point. We have never seen sufficient labor in the agriculture industry. We really need to import labor for the poultry industry. I think we really should look into this because there hasn't been any adjustments made in years. Every month we would give out a few $100s for training, but then we were never able to find sufficient labor for the poultry industry. Can we actually invite the administration to share with us their policies? I'm not sure whether it concerns with manpower because it also involves with the Food and Health Bureau as well. So for those involved in fisheries, they would need to come back to Hong Kong to engage in their paperwork. Mr. Shiu Ka-fai. We're now, well, before the fifth wave of the pandemic, the economy has been picking up. There are about 300 billion in public works, but we do not have enough manpower. We also see an aging population. Therefore, we must try to import labor as soon as possible. So this is really an item suitable for discussion. As other members have also mentioned this point, I hope that we'll be able to discuss it. I will also submit this in writing later on. Mr. Kingsley Wong.
Now, some members mentioned importation of labor or employee training. Perhaps we should have a in-depth discussion on the comprehensive manpower resources policy, because there are jobs without people and there are people without jobs. And the other is about outsourcing. How do we protect the rights and interests of workers of outsourced contractors? And also, maybe if some work is outsourced, it may affect our anti-epidemic efforts. So we should focus on the outsourcing issue. Perhaps we could ask the government to abolish the outsourcing practice altogether. So members, the best way is for you to write in. Then we could have specific wordings, and then we could really address the issues you would like to raise. Any other business, please? Nothing on the AOB, then thank you very much for coming to the meeting. The meeting is adjourned.